everyone, I am Taylor for those of you that do not know me. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Not only am I sharing the story of being a part of a very dark industry, how I got out of it, tips for girls who are already in it and stuck in it, and just sharing the dark secrets of that industry, but also talking about transformation, God's word, mental health, sometimes fashion and perfume because I just absolutely adore those things, and cultural commentary. So if you like any of those, make sure to subscribe and stick around. But today we are on video 2 of the Art of Reinvention series. So last week we did the burning phase, which is basically when either you or God comes in and absolutely destroys whatever needs to be removed from your life, whether that's a relationship, a job that's undervaluing you, a friendship that's not valuing you, or you need to move to a different city, whatever that may be. Today we're going to talk about the second phase, which is the waiting season. My least favorite. Before we get started, I just want to say that the waiting season is probably one of the hardest phases of your life that you will have to go through. It is when doubt is creeping in. It is when you have the call on your heart, but you have absolutely no way how to actually manifest it. You haven't opened yourself to the capacity of receiving the new life. So you're kind of in this weird void of your old life and your new life. I feel the pain of screaming into a void, just hoping that somebody will hear you. Feel the pain of waiting for something for so many years. I completely understand the pain of constantly questioning yourself and doubting if you even heard the call correctly, and if you made a mistake, and if you let go of the wrong things, and just being in this state of silence. I have truly felt like most of my life has been a waiting season, and understanding that I was a chosen one and I had a call on my heart that was very large and a mission that was very large since I was a little girl. And I even remember when I was younger, I looked at my mom in the mirror one day. I was probably 5, and I just looked at her and I was like, I'm gonna do something really important one day. I'm gonna be really big one day. And it wasn't even in oh my god, I'm gonna be famous, I'm gonna be a pop star, look at me. It was I feel called to a life that is greater than I can understand, and that feeling has followed me throughout my entire life, and I know that it has followed a lot of people throughout their entire lives. And when your physical reality is not matching what you have envisioned for yourself, or doesn't match the capacity of the calling that you know is in your heart, that is a really tough feeling. And that wrestling with God, wrestling with the universe over having that calling and still not seeing anything, that is really the essence of the waiting period. And that is when there is so much being stirred up in your spirit and you are actually growing and learning so much, but it does feel like stillness, it does feel like stagnancy. And this is where I honestly see a lot of people take the waiting season as this is just not for me, and they end up turning in a different direction. I recently wrote a Substack article called Exercise the Ghost, which is basically a bunch of different ways of how you can release the past, and that's the burning phase. There's a lot happening in the burning phase, okay? And then the waiting period is almost after a fire where all the embers are kind of just losing that spark and everything's dying out, and then the smoke's just kind of trickling upward. That's what I would describe as the waiting period. And I wrote in that article that a lot of times I like to scream at God, which is 100% true, and not in a way that's oh my God, I love you, blah, blah, blah. But why? What am I waiting for? If I have this calling, why is it not happening? And you have to trust that there's always a reason why it is not happening. Or what have I not learned yet that is preventing this from coming in? If you have called me to this, why am I not there yet? And that's been a lot of my arguments with God and a lot of my wrestling with him over just the calling of your life and the rebuilding of your life and the alignment of your life. The truth is, though, on the inside, everything is being rewritten. From the outside, it looks like there's absolutely nothing happening. And the best way I can describe the waiting period is like a metamorphosis. And when a caterpillar first goes into its cocoon, it looks like nothing is happening. It looks like it's just still, but everything on the inside is being rewritten. Everything is changing on the inside. And we have to change on the inside before we are able to see our manifestations and our calling portrayed to us on the outside. Now, each lesson of the waiting period is a little bit different, and I'm going to go through a few of them. Of course, there's way more, but for the sake of time in this video, we are just going to go through, I want to say 5 or 6 I wrote down. to help you through this waiting period, because I understand it sucks, it's confusing, and if I can offer you any clarity or any invitation to get closer to God and God's word during this waiting season, let me just extend my hand through a digital screen to you and just say you will make it through, but you have to push through this time, and this is probably the worst. Yeah. I said that about the last one, and honestly, the whole process sucks, in my opinion. Like, I'm really not one of these people that's like, oh my god, this is so great. Like, I'm struggling, okay? I'm struggling. Number one is God hides you before he reveals you. I've felt hidden for about, like, 15 years now. In my introduction and in a lot of my introductions to some of my pieces, whether it's content or whether it's my writing, I like to tell people that I have always felt the call to be a writer. You know, no matter what happens, whether it ends up touching a bunch of lives, whether it ends up touching 10 lives, I've always felt called to be a writer, but I have always felt very hidden in that purpose as well. I've also always felt called to be a content creator, and I have been posting videos and posting content since I was in 7th grade. But the truth is, a lot of that content has done okay, you know? It hasn't exploded how I would have thought, and not in like a narcissistic, oh my god, see me type of way, but I think people who have a very strong calling on their lives, who have this just deep, deep desire to share with people, obviously you need people to share that with. So this screaming into the void feeling, it's very discouraging at times, but God is hiding you for a very specific purpose. This is the time where plans feel muted and doors just continue to be shut. It mentions many times that God also separates us in the Bible, and that he has separated his chosen ones. And the truth is when you are going through the waiting season, you will most likely be isolated. And sometimes that feels even worse, because it's confusing of like, okay, if I'm going through a dark time, don't I want to be surrounded by people? But you almost have this internal call to turn inward and to not really, you know, share as much, and not in a way it's like, oh, I have to hide it, but you understand that you're coming to terms with a mission that is really only between you and God, and it only has to make sense to you and God. And this hiddenness and this isolation is the place where we are meant to get close with him. He has to refine you before he is able to present you back into the world. God will remove your visibility so he can curate your identity. He needs to make sure that your identity is rooted in him and him alone, and that it's also rooted in your highest self. And although I am turning to become a little more religious, I also am still spiritual. I do believe that our highest self knows what is best, and whether that is just our perfect God image that lives in heaven, I don't really know. But I do believe that sometimes what our highest self wants and what God wants is not what we actually want, and we have to get our spirits to be prepared for what it is that God knows is going to actually make us happy. And sometimes the things that we believe are going to make us happy are actually not the things that God has for us, and what he has is so much better. But we learn these skills, and we learn how to get closer with him and hear his voice in this hiddenness and in this waiting period. The best way to manage hiddenness is to detach from being seen. And as somebody who has always feared being seen but also had a very deep desire to be seen, you have to detach from both. You have to detach from putting out work and waiting for an applause. I think some of the best artists, and how I know that people are going to be very successful, is when they can continue to put out work when nobody is watching and nobody is listening. Because it's not coming from the desire for somebody to say, good job, you wrote that great, or you made a great video. It's coming from your spirit and your spirit of creation and God calling you to create. And regardless of what anybody else on the outside is saying, you are doing that, and you are being obedient to Christ. You are not being overlooked. God truly hides his best work. Jesus was hidden 30 years before he did 3 years of ministry. Joseph was hidden. David was hidden, even though he was anointed. Esther was hidden. All of these prominent figures from the Bible were hidden until God said that they were ready. The waiting period is really obedience. This is where surrender really becomes your ultimate superpower. As a previous control freak, I think surrender has really been one of the hardest lessons and one of the hardest skills I had to learn, because I'm nosy and I want to know what's going to happen, as I'm sure everybody else does. But surrender really is discipline, and it's something that you're going to need to create for yourself and you're going to need to possess in order to get through the waiting season without having it be such a terrible experience. And also you're going to need it in life because a lot of things are going to happen that are outside of our control, and if we try to control everything, we're going to absolutely crumble. So this is the season where you learn to really embody surrendering your entire life. This could feel like life is moving all around you, but you're just sitting still. It looks like holding your pen over a blank page. It feels like being called in a direction but not feeling called to actually pursue it and just called to rest. And the truth is, we need rest. And when you're overly ambitious, which is such a beautiful gift to have, resting almost feels like failure in a way and feels like I'm not doing anything. But in the waiting period, resting is actually being obedient to God. Surrendering is being obedient to God. The doing is the waiting. If you do not have a clear answer yet, you have no answer. Do nothing but listen to God's voice. Obedience is also the training ground of trust. We can't just trust God when he tells us to go. We have to also trust God when he tells us to sit still. Now, how do we get through this? How do we surrender? We have to stop forcing the outcome. We have to stop trying to do things to force the outcome. And I see it. There's a huge market for trying to make them come back and trying to manifest your ex back. And it's all just so silly to believe that you really have the skills to make that happen. Maybe you do temporarily, but how many times has somebody manipulated their way or manifested their ex back and their ex actually stayed? I'd like to see those statistics. You cannot force the outcome, and you have to trust what God is doing in your life, and he's going to remove things during a season and he's going to bring things in during a season, and it's all up to him. It's not up to you. God is basically like your general if you're at war. So if he tells you to not shoot and you are at war right now and you end up shooting because you decide you feel like it, you're going to screw up the entire plan. So you have to follow him. He's not going to steer you in the wrong direction. It's when we take it into our own hands that we actually end up fucking the whole thing up. You cannot lean on your own understanding. You have to just trust God that he is going to straighten your paths, and he will make it clear when you are meant to know. You cannot continue to follow the path of who you once were. We already burned her. So you have to be quiet, and you have to learn how to be quiet. Stop doom scrolling. Stop going on walks, listening to music. This honestly changed my life. I know it sounds really kind of stupid, but going on a walk without listening to a podcast or music and just calling on God to give you, whether it's the answers or give you a feeling of peace or just connect with him in absolute silence. People need to learn how to be silent. We constantly try to overstimulate ourselves to suppress what we're actually feeling. We're all avoidant in that way because it's so much easier to just turn on the TV than it is to actually sit here with our discomfort and sit here and think about the lives that we created and sit here and feel feelings that we don't actually want to feel. We have distractions just completely at our fingertips. So do things that are silent. Read, or even just read a book. I love reading a book, but not even. Take out all the media. Just sit in silence. Even if you look crazy, go into a park and sit in silence. Don't bring a book, don't bring music, don't bring anything. Just be quiet and wait. Next is character over calling. God is refining your mind, body, and spirit. He's refining your thought process. He's refining your habits. He's refining the people that you keep around, the environments you stay in. He's refining everything. So quick and easy to ask God to bring something into our lives, believing that it's going to change it. But what we rarely ask for is the character to keep it. A great example of this is I used to always pray for money. I wanted a 10K month since I was like 19 years old because everybody in Miami was always talking about these 10K months. It's so easy to go online and have a 10K month. And, you know, I would just always believe that money would be the thing that changed my entire life. And although in certain cases, sure you have the, the choice to leave a situation you don't want to be in. Sure, you have the choice to travel. Sure, you have the means to, get around and not worry about where your next meal came. In my case, I took the devil's path to getting that outcome because I didn't want to sit and wait. I didn't want to sit here and wait for an opportunity that I felt as though was going to pass me by. I wanted to live my life now. I didn't want to wait on God, and I decided to do something very impulsive that costed me a lot, and everything I built was basically taken from me anyways, which it also says in the Bible under a bunch of like curses that God will do when you're disobedient to him. And it was a shortcut, and that's the thing, you cannot create shortcuts, and I didn't have the character to hold the blessing. So yes, I had the money, but no, I did not have the character to hold it. And I was making a lot of stupid decisions. I mean, as one would when you give a 20-year-old that much money all at once after being a broke college student. Trust me, like, you'll do a lot of dumb shit. But that's why this character building phase is so important, because God wants your manifestations to be sustainable. He wants to put you on a stable foundation. He doesn't want you to make $1 million and lose $1 million. He wants you to be able to make $1 million and then 2 million and then 5 million and then 10 million and continue going up. But when you skip the waiting period and when you skip character development, you do not have the skills to maintain what you want. I also see this in relationships. A lot of people lack a lot of character skills that they want in other partners that they do not possess themselves. And they end up fumbling the relationship because they have not built the spirit to hold that type of relationship, and they don't have the capacity and they do not have the skills. Everything in life takes skills. Even basic things like making friends is a skill. Communicating with people is a skill. It's not just things you learn in school. There's a lot of skills that are not teachable in school, or it's not that they're not teachable, but they aren't taught in school, that you learn through life experiences. And you learn in your private space with God, and you learn when you go through trials and tribulations, and when you go through this waiting period. Don't be too prideful to believe that maybe you just aren't ready. I think a lot of us believe, including myself, that because we had a calling, we should have it now, and we almost have a very entitled attitude towards things. And when we're in this waiting period and we're not getting what we want, we turn very bitter and resentful. And trust me, I've definitely been there before, where I've just been pissed off that I did not have what I desired, especially when I was stuck in the dark industry and I was really trying to do everything in my power to get out and nothing was working. I was livid. I can't even explain to you, because I was like, hello, this is the perfect time for you to come through for me. And it didn't happen. And all my biggest fears came true. I don't know the reason for that yet, but I'm trusting that it's just not the right time. Back now, I think, okay, maybe I would have fucked it up again, you know? I didn't have the character skills. I didn't have, you know, the worldly skills to be able to manage that coming in at that time, because I was already dealing with too many things. During this phase, you want to make sure you're seeking correction, not validation. If we can learn our lesson the first time, we're not going to have to continue to learn it over and over again. You cannot believe that you have all the answers, because you don't. You have to ask God to correct you. You have to ask God to reveal to you what needs to be done, what needs to be corrected, what needs to be stirred in your spirit. Something I always love to ask is, how can I get closer to the character of Jesus every single day? And I promise you will not be steered in the wrong direction. Place this striving for stewardship. If you are not happy with what you have now, you are not going to be happy with more, I promise you. And if you do not learn how to manage what you have now, you are not going to know how to manage more. If you cannot manage $2,000, you're not going to be able to manage $20,000. So use this period to develop these skills and develop this character. So when your blessing does come, you don't end up throwing it away on something futile and stupid. Next is delay. I'm sure if you are familiar with the Bible, you know that a lot of times it says delay is not denial. But it's very hard to believe that when it feels like you're walking through life and everybody's just shutting the door on you. The truth is, God does not waste time. When something is truly meant for you, God will take his time building it. Delay is actually proof that he's working on something really big. Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither will you. The delay is actually divine confirmation that he is taking his time, because he knows that you are meant for something very valuable. The things that come to us easy in life, we do not cherish and we take advantage of. The things that we don't work hard for, the relationships that we didn't have to earn, when we haven't gone through this refinement period, when our mission actually presents itself and when our blessings arrive, we're not going to value them. We must find peace in the promise, and we must trust God's voice, that we heard him correctly, even if we're not seeing it in our physical reality. God is slowing you down to strengthen your roots, not punish your growth. If you rip a plant out of the ground too fast, it's gonna die. You also need to not make an idol out of your desires, and I think I've definitely been guilty of it before, where we just want this thing so badly and we're fully convinced this thing's going to fulfill us and it's going to change our lives and everything's going to be perfectly fine once we get this thing. And the absence of it is so grueling and it haunts you every single day. But in that, God is teaching you that you can be fulfilled now without that thing. You don't have to put this thing on a pedestal and believe that it's going to change your life, because it's probably not going to. It might change your physical reality, but internally, if you do not have God and you are not obedient to God and trust in God and fulfilled with His love, it's not going to matter what your physical reality looks like. And that's why you see so many people who have the world and they're absolutely miserable, and then they end up, either falling into bad patterns or they end up pursuing God relentlessly because they're trying to fill in this gap that they believed that their purpose was going to fill. God is working in the details, and He is making your situation absolutely perfect for you. He doesn't want to give you a half love. He doesn't want to give you a half written book. He doesn't want to make your life half good. He wants to give you absolutely everything. And in order to do that, it has to take time. And sometimes that's only 30 days. Sometimes that's 13 years. Nobody really knows. But you need to trust that delay is confirmation that something absolutely amazing is coming your way. It's just taking time to build. How do you get through this? Is you have to just read your Bible. You have to get close to God. I think the best thing you can do in this entire waiting period is just get close to Him, and you will find your answers. And when doubt starts to creep in, you will find your answers in the Word. If you asked me 3 years ago if I would be saying any of this, I would literally tell you you're insane. But it's the truth. And I found so much peace, not only just in my past and everything that's happened, but also in my present and in my future. And I've been running away from the waiting period and the waiting season for almost my entire life. I made my entire decision to go onto that platform to avoid the waiting period because I just could not handle it. I couldn't handle the doubt coming in. I couldn't handle what felt like spiritual attacks. I couldn't handle feeling as though I'm constantly, pushing against a wall and pushing against a door that just won't open. It was absolutely devastating for me because I didn't understand it. I didn't understand what was happening. I didn't understand why, if I was called to something, why it wasn't happening like that. And I think a lot of people get confused and they come on the internet and say, if something's meant for you, it will just happen. That's not true. That is not true. It will happen in God's timing. That might look like tomorrow, or that might look like 20 years down the line. But it's about trusting that it will happen. It's not about if it's going to happen, but about when it will happen. And the when is out of your control. This is where you stay consistent. You rest, you make sure that you're cleansed from what was happening in your past, and you build a clean foundation for what you can build in the future. You can't keep fixing a roof that keeps breaking. You have to eventually just replace the entire roof. Don't give up if you're not seeing results. Don't give up. If you heard this call, you heard it correctly, and let this be your confirmation that you heard it correctly. And, to keep going, keep writing, keep trying, keep, reinventing things, keep turning the wheel, keep researching, keep getting closer to God. Ask Him to align you in your business. God is very close to us in our business. And also, you just have to change your thoughts. Your brain has been rewired to take delay as denial. You have to rewire it, and that means changing your thought patterns and your belief systems over time. The best way to start doing this is to just stop speaking ill of yourself and stop speaking ill of your dreams. When doubt creeps in, or when you get a negative thought about your purpose or your blessings, literally just rebuke it and make the thought obedient to Christ. I would always get these negative thoughts, and then I realized that these negative thoughts do nothing for me. They do nothing. They have absolutely no purpose but making me feel bad. And why should I feel bad on something that I'm called to? And the devil's trying to keep me from that. And I think that when you are also relentlessly pursued by the devil, understand that you have something very special about you. You have God and the devil both pursuing you. You have something very valuable. And you need to trust that. Even if you don't know what that is, you need to trust that. Overall, the waiting period is really when the quiet miracles happen before the loud miracles happen. Everything must change on the inside before it could change on the outside. And the waiting period is where everything internally changes. It seems like nothing is happening, but trust me, your spirit is changing. Peace, forgiveness, healing from any type of mental illness, patience, strength, all of that is an internal shift. changing your perception is also an internal shift. And you have to change your perception before you can see your life change. You cannot create a life from the damaged version of yourself. You cannot create a new life from the old version of yourself. We already burned her down. So rest, stay hydrated, eat some gummies if you have to. Not those gummies, but I really like stress gummies. I'll put them here. No, this is not sponsored. These just absolutely saved my life because I just got off Lexapro, which was a whole journey. I was actually gonna check myself in. Like, that cannot be good for you. But I did love my Lexapro for a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. Truth is, the outside victories are great, but the internal ones are really the ones that matter. And those are the ones that make the biggest difference. And they're the victories that money can't buy. Victories that rewire your nervous system. The victories that pull you out of a toxic relationship. Change your heart. They teach you how to let go. You find so much peace. You must have radical acceptance for the waiting period and accept what it's trying to teach you and what it's trying to bring you. Finding peace after pain is honestly the closest thing we have to a resurrection. Embrace it, and before you know it, you'll look back and be like, that was me? Like, I cannot believe she was in certain situations. I cannot believe that she allowed that in her life. I cannot believe she got through that. And you're gonna look back and be a completely renewed version of yourself. And it's because of this waiting period. And it's because of all of these internal shifts where you thought nothing was moving and you thought everything was still and you thought that God wasn't listening to you. And you're gonna be like, I'm a completely new person. And I feel like I did nothing, you know, because no, I didn't achieve my dreams. No, I'm not at the place where I want to be, but I'm not back there. And that's a beautiful place to be. All right, you guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope I helped you gain some clarity around the waiting phase and around, you know, how to navigate it and how to not let it crush your spirit, because trust me, I have been crushed by it for so long, hence why I did everything in my power to get away from it. This is truly the video that I feel like I needed for myself years ago, and if someone would have told me about this, maybe I wouldn't have done what I did. But you know what? It's all a learning lesson, and I don't regret it, and I'm happy for what that experience exposed me to. I think everything that happens in your life is a learning lesson. I don't think things are random, and everything that I'm pursuing after that is just so amazing, and truthfully, I wouldn't have learned a lot of this had I not gone through that. So appreciate your past self. She's the one that got you here, and learn to give yourself grace and forgiveness, and you do that in your quiet time with God. You do that when you are revealed messages that are meant to heal your spirit, and the answers will all come to you with due time. It's okay to rest. It's okay to allow your roots to grow deeper. Truly, there's no shortcuts for the waiting period. You have to go into the depths of everything. This is really where you're digging up all the gunk that's still there, and you're rewiring your entire brain. That's crazy. And that is so amazing to accomplish that. And don't let just the fact that you're not at the financial place that you want to be in, or you're not in the relationship that you want to be in, don't allow the external gains that you get override the internal shifts that you have. Every hidden season, every quiet day, every unanswered prayer is all part of God's plan to strengthen your faith and to turn your eyes and heart to Him. When the time is right, the Lord, will make it happen. Trust me, it will happen. It's not a matter about if, it's a matter about when. And thank you. I hope this helped you. And comment down below what I guess your favorite tip was. If you haven't seen my branding video, make sure to check that out. It does come before the waiting. And then next week we're gonna do the realignment. So that's gonna be kind of like after the waiting period, or kind of getting yourself out of the waiting period when you start hearing God's voice more, and when you start realigning from what your past was doing and what presently you're gonna do now to get the future that you have always wanted. So with that being said, thank you so much, and I will see you guys next week.